Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about this subject that I found to be very particularly interesting. And also, with this subject, I'm going to be reviewing that of a video by that of DontaesBoxingNation. And I was going to kind of release this news, or at least overall, kind of talk about it just by myself. But I thought that I would review that of a DontaesBoxingNation video for that of a reason because Tszyu versus Keith Thurman has just recently been announced. And for those of you that do not know, it has been announced for that, I believe, of March 30th of this year, happening on that at Amazon Prime when PBC debuts on that event. Now, apparently, we don't know really who else is going to be on the card, but apparently, this is a fight that's going to be happening next. And I'm going to be talking about my opinions on the fight. Dante is as well. Let's get straight into it.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Breaking news. So according to reports, according to ESPN, Tszyu will be fighting against Keith Thurman next on March 30th. This is great news for Tszyu because he finally gets a big name in the ring. I don't know if this is the best news for Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is going to be moving up to 154, and he's fighting against one of the best fighters, I would say top three in the division. He didn't look too good against Mario Barrios, and Tszyu is much better than Mario Barrios. You know, Keith Thurman has some pretty good options on the table.
Isn't it very interesting that Tszyu is much better than Mario Barrios? Right, so basically what you're saying is that Mario Barrios is not an A-grade level fighter. And and once again, these are Dante's Boxing Nation's words. These aren't my words. He just told you that Mario Barrios is not an A-grade level fighter. But yet a lot of these channels keep trying to tell you this shit about how Gervonta Tank Davis is fighting these top-level Latino fighters and all sort of bullshit. These guys that, are okay. They're good, but they're not great fighters. Once again, the best fighters around Gervonta Tank Davis's weight class, or around there. Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Regis Prograis, Josh Taylor, still probably Vasily Lomachenko, Devin Haney, and there might be a couple other names that I'm not knowing about. And I'll put Ryan Garcia in there. But once again, it's very interesting who they tried to promote as A grade versus B grade, depending on the day.
He actually could have fought Devin Haney at 147, but he turned down the fight. He told Bill Haney that the fight would not happen this year because he wanted to go a different route. Now, I'm surprised Keith Thurman chose this route to fight against Tszyu, because even though Keith Thurman could lose to either fighter, when it comes to Tszyu could possibly end his career. Not to mention Keith Thurman would have most likely got paid.
Well, if Keith Thurman ends up losing to either fighter, it's going to end up pretty much ending his career. But if he were to lose to that of Devin Haney, when Devin Haney is just moving up to that of 147, and he's also not known as a super great power puncher, and Keith Thurman is known as a guy as Keith one-time Thurman, that wouldn't go very well with his career.
Or fighting against.
Now, don't get me wrong, Devin Haney is looked at as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters today, and deservingly so, but at the end of the day, I think that debatably that the Tszyu fight, now in terms of marketability, yeah, the Devin Haney fight would probably be better. But if Keith Thurman actually is able to beat that of Tszyu, then he beat a fighter that was looked at as heavier. He's never fought a champion at the 154-pound weight class. And then on top of that, he could possibly get that Terrence Bud Crawford fight where it would be probably very huge if Keith Thurman, of course, can win this fight.
Devin Haney. But on the bright side, if Keith Thurman can pull off the upset and beat Tszyu, it would be a massive win. Now, something else you guys probably noticed is they're fighting on the 30th of March, which was supposed to be PBC's debut on Amazon Prime. Now, a lot of people thought that Gervonta Tank Davis was going to be the first person to fight on Amazon Prime. So this could mean either two things. Either PBC's first card on Amazon Prime is going to be a stacked card with a whole bunch of big fights just to make a statement, a first impression statement, or it can mean Gervonta Tank Davis is pushing his date back. After all,
Well, we all know who Gervonta Tank Davis is more than likely fighting next is not going to be a big fight. It'll probably be a big event because Gervonta Tank Davis overall, he's a big name fighter and he's very entertaining. But once again, what A grade level fighter is Gervonta Tank Davis really planning on fighting next?
He did come out recently saying something like he's going through a lot of stuff right now. Now, and I had told you guys about a week ago that I had contacted someone.
But anyways, once again, let me also state this, and this is the reason why I wanted to review this video by that of DontaesBoxingNation. If Tszyu ends up winning this fight against that of Keith one-time Thurman, don't be surprised if you see that of New Media and the LDBC, but especially that of DontaesBoxingNation and Aki TV, them try to gas up Tszyu as a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter. even though Keith Thurman at the moment hasn't fought in over 2 years and he hasn't won a big fight in many years. And on top of that, he is not a champion. Don't be surprised. And I always tell this about people, some people, they come on my channel and they say, oh, well, you say that, the LDBC and new media, that they have racial motivations, but they give credit to certain fighters like David Benavidez and Josh Taylor and all these other guys. The only non-black American fighters that the LDBC and new media channels usually give a great amount of credit to, or at least out of new media, including that of Dante's Boxing Nation and Aki TV and Boxing Eagle, the only ones that they really gas up that much are the ones that they know that they can use, or they know that they're going to be a lamb for the slaughter. And right now they might basically kind of feed up Tim Tszyu. They kind of might feed him to a lot of their followers, or that to the public, because they know that Tim Tszyu is not going to defeat that of Terrence Bud Crawford. And that's not me saying that, that's not a great fight. It is a very great fight. And I would love to see that fight between Terrence and Tim Tszyu. But once again, you realize that with some of these fighters, Josh Taylor, Tim Tszyu, David Benavidez, and a lot of these other guys, what you all notice about those fighters is that either A, they can use them for the lamb for the slaughter, or B, they can use them to tear down another fighter that they need to remove from that potential number one pound-for-pound spot. So that's basically the reason why they gas up David Benavidez, because they know that they can try to tear Canelo Alvarez down by using David Benavidez' name. They don't like David Benavidez any more than a lot of other those, Latin or the Caucasian fighters, but they're using him because once again, they can tear him down, or tear down Canelo Alvarez by using his name. When it came to Josh Taylor, once he became undisputed, he was easily top 5 pound for pound in the world. You know why that is? Because whoever the winner of the Crawford versus Spence fight was, they could further their case. If Josh Taylor had he remained undisputed, or at least remained undefeated, and then Crawford or Spence would have whooped his ass, then they could have said, wow, take a look at that. They easily defeated a top 5 pound for pound fighter. That's basically what they say. But anytime Canelo, might possibly do that against Charlo or something like that, Jamel Charlo, then all of a sudden they're a little bit more reluctant about it. Now, to be fair, Jamel Charlo did have to move up a couple of weight classes. Once again, I don't think that Canelo really is a natural super middleweight anyway, but it is what it is. But anyways, once again, you notice that the fighters that they don't gas up that are non-black American fighters, like Inoue and Fury and that of Usyk and Canelo Alvarez, what do they all have in common? At one point in time, they've all been looked at as clearly the best of their weight divisions, no matter what nationalities were there. And then on top of that, they were debated potentially as the number one pound for pound fighter. You will never see new media or the LDBC gas those fighters up. You will only see them gas up non-black fighters that can be either used for A, the slaughter overall that they're about to see when they get in the ring against that elite black fighter, and they can try to gas them up as a top 10 to top 5 pound per pound fighter, so they can try to boost overall that black fighter into looking greater overall for that win. And don't get me wrong, if Terrence Crawford was able to beat Josh Taylor when he was still undefeated, it would have been a top 10 pound per pound win. No doubt about it, certainly. But I don't know if I would put Tim Tszyu in my top 10 pound per pound, but let's see. I'm not quite sure if they're going to do it, but don't be surprised because they love to do that. So once again, like I said, they will gas up certain non-black fighters, but only because they can either be used for one or two reasons: to tear down the name of the fighters that they really need to be off the pound per pound list, like Fury or Usyk or Canelo or Inoue, or B, when it comes down to because they know that they can use it to try to make the win look greater overall on that of the resume of their favorite fighters that they're trying to promote as the number one pound per pound fighter or the best of their generation. So they can try to say, see, we have these American black fighters within our top 5 pound per pound. And anyone who doesn't have it like this, has racist intentions.
It works for PBC, and I asked him, does he know when we're going to get some type of announcement? He said we should get something big next week. Now I'm assuming that he was talking about this fight right here. And now that I think about it, I actually asked him, when are we going to get the new PBC boxing schedule? We'll see if that schedule comes out soon. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right.
But anyways, that's pretty much about it overall for today. I just thought that I would talk about that. But the Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman fight, just to kind of give my own thoughts. There could have potentially been a better fight for Tim Tszyu out there. I don't really know how great of a fight this is. It definitely is a fight that I find to be very exciting. Of course, in terms of a name, Keith Thurman is a greater name than a lot of other names that Tim Tszyu could have potentially been in the ring with. But of course there is a question: how great or how good is Keith Thurman really at this point in time in his career? Now, of course, DontaesBoxingNation said that Keith Thurman didn't look very good against Mario Barrios. Well, I thought that he looked pretty good against Mario Barrios. It's just that one round, in regular Keith Thurman fashion, he kind of loses a little bit of focus, and sometimes he can get hurt. And of course he was a little bit hurt against that of Mario Barrios, but he still pretty much won every other round. He won probably about 11 rounds to one. Still beat the hell out of Mario Barrios. Pretty much still made it look like a boxing clinic. But I'm just not quite sure if Keith Thurman is quite the same animal anymore. He hasn't fought, I believe, in over 2 years or around 2 years. And then on top of that, he's had some injuries and legitimate surgeries, like legitimate injuries, overall. And don't get me wrong, Spence, for example, because that's who I'm kind of referring to. He's had surgeries as well, and he's clearly had his accidents. But I'm just not, buying that excuse, or at least whatever, for the Crawford fight. That is, I was at compromise. But I'm not quite sure. Thurman is older now. He's had surgeries, and on top of that, he hasn't fought in a very long time. He's going up a weight class. I'm not really quite sure if Keith Thurman is a 100% confirmed A-grade fighter. But let me also state this, because a lot of fighters heading into certain fights, they love to say, or not fighters, excuse me, but boxing fans, especially when they're trying to tear down a certain fighter, they love to say that this dude is A-grade and that this dude is going to beat this guy because he's overrated. You'll see, overall, like I remember it with Marcus Brown and that of Artur Beterbiev. A lot of the guys, especially from the LDBC and new media channels, the boxing fans there, you could tell that they thought that Artur Beterbiev, that he was this big hype and that he had nothing but power. And then he got in the ring against Marcus Brown, who's a relatively decently skilled fighter, and he beat him up. But then they said, well, Marcus Brown really wasn't that good and he already lost and all sort of stuff. Point is this, when you take a look at a fight like this, you definitely know that there, can kind of be a little bit of a double-edged sword. Because Keith Thurman definitely is an experienced name. He's a former somewhat unified champion. But at the end of the day, he hasn't fought in a very long time. And we don't quite know whether he's A grade. But you have to make that assumption overall before the fight. Because there's nothing that's more obnoxious, overall than someone that is an apparent hater of someone overall when they say, oh, well, this fighter, overall, he's going to kick his ass. And then after that fight, they say that, oh, he wasn't the same fighter and he just fought a bum. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes fighters get revealed as hype jobs, but at the end of the day, once again, you have to keep somewhat of consistent energy. But anyways, that's pretty much about it. I don't think that this is the worst fight. If I had to favor anyone just in the beginning, I would favor that to Tszyu. I would give Keith Thurman about a 30 to 40% chance. I don't see him winning this fight. I think that Tszyu has gained a little bit too much confidence. I think that he's fought fighters with bigger size than that of Keith Thurman. And I always thought that Keith Thurman had a couple of faults and a couple of Achilles heels anyways. I think that he was never a super elite defensive fighter. And I think in order for Keith Thurman to really win the biggest fights in his career, that he has to have that great athleticism. And I still think that he has power. I still think that he clearly is probably, a decent fighter. I'm just not quite sure if he's on the A-grade level anymore. I'm not quite sure if he's B plus or A minus, but either way, it's definitely not the worst fight that you could get for that of Tszyu, especially if you're trying to build up that of the Terrence Bud Crawford fight. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. We'll see where this goes, but it's going to be very interesting.